Weymouth, but of course while he's there meeting potential voters with his candidate there, Jim Knight, as well, all the talk at the moment seems to be of a hung parliament and promises of a referendum on constitutional reform. Well, one man watching with a keen eye is founder of OpenDemocracy.net, Anthony Barnett. He's in Sky's Westminster studio. Good to see you there, Anthony. I mean, there are just so many permutations being discussed at the moment, but I suppose the main one, focusing there on Mr Brown, is that Labour, according to many of the polls, could be third of the big three parties in terms of the percentage of the popular vote, but have the biggest number of MPs, and in that situation, could Mr Brown stay on as Prime Minister if he cobbles together a deal with the Lib Dems?
Well, I don't think he will, and I certainly think he shouldn't stay on. If he comes third, it clearly means he's been defeated.
Yes, so, right, short and to the point. But, I mean, the point is that, you know, there is no constitutional roadmap for any of this, is there?
No, well, I think what's in my view, wonderful about the present situation is that previously we've seen a hung parliaments as a kind of accidental outcome of the frustration of the system, whereas I think now people are voting for a hung parliament. That's to say, it activates them, it's bringing them to the polls, they're supporting the Lib Dems in order to say we don't want the system run by the two old parties in the way that it was. And that means that there's a kind of legitimacy to a hung parliament, and that produces a completely new pressure to create a coalition out of what happens and not the usual kind of fudge and mudge.
So you think we're going to see a lot of sophistication from the voters? I mean, we don't have a very sophisticated voting system, do we? First past the post, put a stubby X in the box there, but people are going to look, you think, and vote tactically. I mean, because there are a lot of constituencies where, you know, you may want to vote for a Lib Dem MP, but they haven't got a chance of getting in.
Well, I think the thing is, people have been doing a lot of tactical voting, and indeed quite a lot of what you might call kind of what's the point abstention. The last election with 40% abstention was, I think, the first or second time that the number of people who refused to vote was greater than the number who voted for the winning party. So I think we may see people not abstaining, voting Lib Dem, and I think something of a breakthrough is happening where people are voting perhaps Green in Brighton, they're voting for independents. There are a record number of independent candidates, which is a sign of the sense that people want the system over. Well, they're saying, hell, let's go for the Lib Dem and let's really break the system open. So I think we could see it seems to me that is more than a protest vote now. It's saying, right, we can actually get real change, and it's held steady. And I think if that happens, it's inconceivable that the leader of the party that gets the least votes could carry on in office. And I think both Brown and Mandelson, who is, so to speak, the maestro, the master of Labour's strategy, would have to resign.
And is it inconceivable, Anthony, that we stay with our current voting system, because we know that the price of Lib Dem support for whoever it might be will be some kind of reform of that system? It's
conceivable because the resistance to changing it is so profound in both the Conservative Party, across the political class, and in many of the newspapers. They want, like what they think is strong government. I think it's slightly hysterical, weak government that produces appalling policies and has permitted the corruption of our political system. But the political class itself will do everything it can to hold the line on that. And I think there are two things. First is that any coalition that includes the Lib Dems, I hope, will include a kind of Great Repeal Act, what they call the Freedom Bill, to roll back the attacks on our liberties, the surveillance state, the database state. And I think the other thing is that they will go for a referendum on what kind of voting system we want. And that's right. And it means that we will then have a chance to vote on what kind of voting system we should have. That's been done in New Zealand. It's quite easy to set out the options and their consequences. And then if the population are not frightened into saying we want to keep with the existing system, then we will get change.
Anthony Barnett, thank you very much indeed.
Flights, hotels, car hire, netflights.com.